Okay. Hello, everybody. Randy just from Accountability and Safety subgroup. One of the things looking at accountability and safety that I bring to subcommittees, the subgroup's attention, is looking at ways that we can keep police accountable and how they talk to community members in in the city and how they do that. So one of the things I was reached out to by the Keep Back Hot Batiai, I think that's how I pronounce it. If I mispronounce it now, he will correct me, about a program that looks that is able to use 80 to go to take ADR data, take out the conversations, and able to score those conversations in different aspects to show how police officers are talking to community members, where they're doing de-escalation or doing other process. The key is here. I'm going to pull up a presentation. He's going to go through the presentation, talk about the program, able to ask questions, and then there's going to be two asks put forward as a recommendation towards the group. There's a recommendation to do a trial period to see how the program works, to see if that's something that the city will do, or to recommend to have the program start off for a year. So those will be the two recommendations that will be put forward. Um, the key is here. I'll let him speak, and then I'll share the screen with the presentation.
Yeah, thanks, Randy. Appreciate the introduction. Like Randy mentioned, my name is Nikit Bhatia. I'm the head of sales over at GreenKey, primarily responsible for recruiting cities into our free trials. I speak with state legislators, local government, police departments on a daily basis, as well as manage our relationship with Amazon. But happy to go into it. Randy, if you want, I'll try to get through this as quick as possible because I know there's a lot of people on this call and I want to be efficient with your time. But Randy, can you skip to the next slide? Yeah, so essentially, Randy did a pretty good job summing it up. What we can help the police department with is a few things, actually. Number one, we can help to increase transparency and accountability by analyzing conversations in the field between civilians and officers, and then providing reporting on that data to actually one of the points that you guys were discussing, I joined a little early, is how do we measure whether this investment in the task force and other investments that you guys are funding as a city are truly leading to a good ROI or improving things in the field. This would be one way to objectively get that data. The other thing is we could potentially help to reduce unnecessary costs at departments. So a lot of departments spend a lot of time and resource on the evidence review process, and having humans review that data is typically super inefficient and doesn't give you the whole picture. Humans would never be able to review all the body-worn camera footage that a department produces, but a machine is capable of doing it, analyzing it, and producing valuable metrics to help improve community relationships. So Randy, if you want to go to the next slide. Yeah, so this is a quick history of our company. Basically, we got our credibility and our technology, our artificial intelligence technology, has been battle tested on Wall Street for about the last 8 years. The biggest banks in the world all use our software. So like JP Morgan, Bank of America, Citibank, their sales and trading desks all use our AI. Motorola invested in our company in 2018. That's when we got our start in the police realm. We power a lot of their workflows, such as 911 smart transcription. And then Amazon became a partner of GreenKey, and they wanted to help after the George Floyd shooting and a lot of the things that happened in the last few years. They wanted to invest in technologies that are going to help to solve the problem. So we are now 100% focused on body-worn camera analytics, exclusively does body-worn camera analytics now. Our Wall Street business is handled by our partners, and Motorola, again, powers those other workflows. Randy, if you want to hop over to the next one. So I think the problem is pretty clear. There's so much data and there's so much value in this data, and police departments are not unlocking it today. I don't think that any police department that I've spoken to in the country, from Chicago to LAPD to Seattle, none of them currently have a way to analyze all this data and to use it to improve police training, to measure effectiveness of de-escalation in the field, to figure out which files are high risk and need to be reviewed. So our software provides a way to do that. A high risk file could be a arrest, it could be a use of force that didn't receive a citizen complaint. It could be something as simple as a very negative interaction between a civilian and an officer that needs to be reviewed, somebody needs to take a look at it for additional reporting or transparency purposes. And that's really what we're trying to solve. It's a cost-effective manner for you to look at all this data, get a bird's eye view of which files are high risk and low risk, get a transcript of each event so all this data is now searchable, and then have the ability to filter and organize this data to present it to dictate policy changes, to get high-level aggregate reports for local government, such as something as simple as what's the percent success rate of the police department at de-escalating a situation, which de-escalation tactics are most effective. If you wanted to get as granular into individual officers, you would be able to do that, and it could potentially reduce liability to the city in the future as well. But yeah, Randy, if you want to go to the next one. These are some metrics around cost savings and time savings that we could produce for the police department. A lot of local government is interested in this because it can help to reduce their annual budget, unnecessary spend on evidence storage, for example. Quickly, like a very big department that we work with, Chicago Police Department, they spend about $10 million on just body-worn camera storage annually because they produce so much video. They have 4,500 officers, and they save everything for 5 years. We are doing this exercise where we analyze high risk versus low risk files. Any low risk files, they could potentially replace with a transcript and inevitably save about $2 million annually on their budget. So there is a lot of cost savings that could be produced through this. And then the analytics on top of that is definitely an added benefit, especially for groups such as yourself. You can go to the next one. So at a high level, the way it actually works is you would take copies of your body-worn camera footage. You would upload it into an AWS GovCloud instance that's CJIS compliant and compliant with all state and federal regulations in terms of security. From there, that data would be transcribed. It would then be assessed for risk, and then you could generate one of 3 reports that we produced today. The 3 reports are an auto flagging report, show me the risk associated with each of these body camera videos and what actually happened to help auto categorize with evidence management. The second report is a de-escalation report. It goes into, early warning system. So early warning system is basically show me the top 50 negative events from the day before, let's say. And those events are things that the command staff should be aware of. They're huge liabilities to the police department. It's usually when a police officer had a negative interaction with a civilian, and things that should be reviewed later on to see whether it was the civilian that acted out, it was the officer that could have handled the situation better, and things that can be used by the training division to improve positive interactions in the community and the overall community policing. And then the last report, it's not in the deck, Randy, but it's de-escalation. It's basically, like I mentioned, we can produce 2 sets of reports. It could be show me the individual officer. Does he have a trend of not de-escalating situations? This is a project we're doing for San Francisco's Department of Police Accountability. They want to see which officers have a track record of not de-escalating situations, because it's constant historical behavior and it's a huge liability it presents to the city. But their local government is most interested in aggregate reports. Show me the average time my whole department takes to de-escalate a situation, show the success rate and things like that. But we can go on to the last slide, Randy. So what happens next is earlier, I think he mentioned there's really a couple of ways to move forward. I would recommend a free trial. The free trial is the low risk way to evaluate our software and evaluate our team's level of service. It basically asks that your police department ring fence anywhere from 500 to 1,500 hours of body-worn camera data that they want analyzed. We would then set up an AWS GovCloud instance that, again, would be operated by them for security purposes. And we would transcribe that data, and then we would generate reports on that data, and we would share it with your team. Your police department can then make a decision whether they think this is going to lead to a good ROI, Your task force can make a decision whether this is a good way to measure effectiveness in the field and how community policing is going, and things like that. And it's basically a risk-free way. There's no cost or obligation associated with it. The only effort it really takes is for the IT department to get the data, which they already have access to, could take less than 5 minutes. It's an upload and we generate reports. And then from there, you guys can secure budget, decide whether it's for you or not. But the whole process is relatively seamless. It can be done in less than 1 day. And then quickly on the last slide, Randy, one more slide actually. Like I said, we work with a lot of big departments. Chief Trevino has been great. He's down in San Antonio. He is happy to talk to anybody in terms of if they want to ask him how the software could lead to a cost savings, could lead to improved transparency. He's really been spearheading us around the country, introducing us to a lot of people. He sits on the Major Cities Chiefs Association, as well as the Secret Service and a few others. But he's helped to raise brand awareness and help to talk to a lot of end users. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I know I've spoken to a lot of you in the past, so I've probably addressed some questions already, but happy to questions if anybody has any.
Open to questions.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it, everyone.
Don, did you have a question?
Yes, I do. That's why I raised my hand.
Yes. No, I don't think you heard me the first time. Go ahead. It's okay.
Okay, no. First question is a ballpark. What would this cost the city of Richmond? But second question has to do with the transcripts. As I understand it, a transcript is, putting down on paper the audible words that were said, but you can't really put down on paper what was happening visually. And so what you're referring to as minor incidents, in Chicago, you said they could save $2 million a year by going only with transcripts. Who decides that something is minor, and how do you quantify something that is visual? I mean, if audio would work just fine, we would just have tape recorders instead of body cams. Maybe you can help me out on this.
Yes, that's a good question. So in terms of the risk assessment, the way we assess risk is we factor in the various linguistic signals before like a gunshot were to go, or whatever you're referring to in terms of the visual aspect. But it's relatively obvious when like a negative situation is occurring, and that would be a high risk file. And we would recommend, we don't delete anything or replace anything ourselves. We just make recommendations. So we would tell you like, this is a high risk file. We would recommend that you save this for your retention period and possibly past that for court purposes, or if it's ever FOIA requested or anything like that. What we mark as low risk files is what we recommend that you consider with the transcript. And that would be something like a routine traffic stop, where the sentiment in the conversation between the civilian and the officer is relatively neutral. Half the time in the video, the officer maybe keeps his body camera on and he's writing a speeding ticket in his car. That's all wasted cloud storage space for a lot of these departments. So that's when they would take a look at it or look through the transcript and make the decision whether they want to delete it or not. For the high risk files, I agree with you. I think you should keep the video footage 100%. We would never recommend that either. Your other question in regards to pricing, maybe you can give me a ballpark of how many body cameras your police department currently has.
I don't have that kind of information, but because you would not be answering the next question I would be asking. I'd be asking it of task force members. Where are we going to get the money to pay for this if we're cutting out all the other programs that are beneficial, like ShotSpotter, for instance? Where are we going to come up with the money for yours? Are we going to have to lay off another police officer, for instance? But that, again, that's not a question for you. That's a question internally. But I can't answer how many interactions we have or how many body cams we have. That's not available.
Yeah, so our pricing is dependent on body cameras. It ranges from $40 a camera all the way down to $10 for the largest departments, sometimes lower for like LAPD and departments of that size. And that's to analyze all the videos on those body cameras. The way we typically justify our costs, it's typically less than the cost of one full-time employee, and we produce 2 to 3x in terms of cost savings and time savings in the form of evidence review. I don't know, I haven't spoken to your department directly, but a lot of the time the evidence review process is super time consuming, and there's 3 to 4 employees that just sit there watching body worn camera videos a lot of the time. The process is super elongated and outdated, and they never can watch all the videos. So that's like an easy way to justify costs. Those resources can then rather be in the field. They could be spent doing higher priority items rather than just watching random body camera videos to try to conduct an audit on the entire police department with a random sampling rather than the whole bird's eye view of it all. But yeah, I mean, in terms of pricing, we never really had an issue with most departments that we work with, at least.
I need a clarifying question, please. You said $40 or $10 if it's a large department. Is that per hour, per day, per week, per year?
That's per month. So let's say you had 50 body worn cameras, your pricing would be around $2,000 a month, $24,000 annually.
Thank you.
Ben, you're next.
Yeah, thank you. We have 150 that are licensed cameras. So that would be our number. It's not the amount of actually on the street, but that's how many we have. They're give or take probably 10. So that would be that number.
Okay. Yeah, I can give you a quick estimate if you need it. Give me one sec.
And I have some other questions after that.
Hey,
Yeah,
I actually have the number from a previous email from our group that I believe came from you. My understanding is it's $40,000 for 135 cameras.
135 times.
This came
yeah,
from Joey
yeah.
Schlemmer in conversation with our group.
I was
Yeah,
going to say
so-
that's what you gave us.
Yeah, so it would be around that. It would be 20. You're in like the $25 per camera tier. If that's to analyze every single body camera. If you're not actively using all of them, I probably wouldn't recommend that you pay to analyze all of them. So it could be less, but yeah, that would be your ballpark.
Okay, thanks for that. And how would so these other cities, my understanding is Seattle, Chicago, and DC Metro that you're currently in, are they in the 2-week or the 2-month trial period, or are they fully committed in contracts?
Yeah, so those are, we work with about, we're at like 15 right now. Those are the only ones we're allowed to disclose in the market. Seattle is putting us in for budget for about a 2-year deal. Pretty big
Who do you have in California?
We work with the Department of Police Accountability at San Francisco. We are talking to LAPD. They look like they're going to move forward with a free trial. And then we're meeting. We just started targeting California, so we're meeting all over the place. I think we have like San Francisco on the horizon, Long Beach, and a few others.
All right, thanks for that. And then how do you determine like what words are escalating? Who determines all that Orwellian type of stuff?
Yeah, so in terms of the auto flagging, I would say that one is the least subjective, and it's basically like auto categorizing your files. If an arrest occurred, it's usually like a yes, no. There's really not like an opinion there. For models like the de-escalation and measuring that kind of thing, we build out of the box models based on white papers that we've read, but in parallel to that, our data science team built that. In parallel to that, we work with a group of what we call model builders. So universities, advocacy groups like the NAACP, and research institutes like the National Institute on Justice, Council on Criminal Justice. And basically, we provide them our software at no cost. We allow them to use our base models on things like de-escalation and respectfulness, and they can then build something that you guys would then benefit from once they're comfortable with the efficacy. So for example, the NAACP has an analytics division. They want to take our out-of-the-box respectfulness model that was built on a research paper that Stanford produced a few years back, and they want to take it to build a model that detects racial bias at traffic stops. When they're comfortable with that model, they plan to contribute it to our library of models, And then you as a police department in Richmond would be able to take that, push your data through, and then see if there was racial bias present at any of your traffic stops. And then same with like Stanford on de-escalation and all these other communities. That's probably about 6 months to a year out before I think those models will be publicly available. But in terms of customizing it for your own ability, we provide a front end. So a subject matter expert at the department, like someone who's familiar with the data, the training tactics, something like that. You would want to spend about 15 to 30 minutes per week for the first 4 to 6 weeks training the model. So it understands that this is a de-escalation tactic that's homegrown to your department. Our out-of-the-box model is not going to recognize homegrown tactics. It's only going to recognize nationwide tactics being implemented in the field.
Right. Okay. So that's still kind of far off, is what you're saying? Because I mean,
No.
let's be honest. I don't really care how they police in other places. I want, you want to be responsive to the community that you actually serve. So I mean, that's why it's critical to know like what the customization is on that.
The customization aspect is ready. So what's far out is you getting access to like the NAACP's model, because they're not going to share it until they're comfortable with the accuracy. What's ready today is the adaptability and the customizability of the model. So like, that's what all these big departments are doing. Like with the de-escalation model, LAPD's not going to purchase something that they can't customize or adapt to understand their own nuances. So that's really what they're using our front end for. So their innovation teams training their own model around de-escalation, or plans to at least.
Is that all you have, Ben?
Yeah, that's it. Sorry, thanks.
Okay, Andres.
Yeah, a couple questions. Other than the mention of the NAACP kind of having their own model around de-escalation, I haven't heard anything about where the public participates in reviewing some of this material that after it's been analyzed by your AI process. And then secondarily, what language capacities does your software currently have, given the fact that we have a multilingual community here? I think those are some critical issues.
Yeah, those are definitely important questions. For the first one, in terms of sharing data with the public, we are not at liberty to do that. So we sign like data confidentiality and NDA agreements with every city and or police department, whoever is the signature in the end of the day. And you guys would internally have to have a discussion whether I doubt the police department is going to want to be very open to sharing it, at least in my experience. So you guys would have to have a discussion of whether you get access to that data, how that relationship would work, whether it can be shown to the public. I had an interesting conversation earlier with Hayward city manager, actually, like about a couple hours ago, where they're looking at this as potentially a way to highlight good policing in their community. So she was open to sharing the reports with the public around like, hey, our police department is doing a great job at de-escalating situations. But that's completely like an internal discussion that you guys would need to have. In terms of languages that we understand, right now, today, it's only English. One of our partners, Knife, they understand like 270 different languages. We do some business with them on Wall Street. And they have a way to translate like Spanish into English, and then we can transcribe it. But to be honest, with the grammar differences and things like that, the transcript definitely doesn't come out as clean as it would be if it was just English to transcript. But it's something we're capable of. It's not something I actively promote because I don't believe the accuracy will be nearly as high.
Well, but then how is that going to benefit a community like us, where these are, important sectors of our community? And I would certainly agree with you that if the city of Richmond was to move in this direction, there would need to be some sort of public accountability, public review process before entering into some kind of contract that it's closed off only to the police. That just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I mean, typically the reporting is consumed by the command staff and the local government, yeah, and they make data-driven decisions from there. But yeah, there seems to be more demand to share these reports with the public. But yeah, that's completely like a city decision. I don't know if that would have an effect on like the contract itself, but like we wouldn't be able to really convince you guys to share your data. It's up to you. You guys own the data input, which would be the raw body camera footage, and you own that whole process of the data transfer, and you own the actual reports themselves. So what you do with them at the end of the day is completely up to you guys.
Okay, Helen?
Thank you. So some of my questions were answered by because Andres also asked them. So thank you, Andres. I am feeling a little confused, and this might be my own doing. My understanding was that we were pursuing this technology with the assumption that the reports would be public to the community, because the group you're speaking to is accountability for police, right? So like that's the audience here. That's what we're trying to get furthered. And from your last couple responses, what I'm hearing from you is that that doesn't happen, or at least that's something that's not. Can you please speak more on that? On what the
So
aspects are to the community, or maybe Randy can speak more to that.
oh, sorry, go ahead, Randy.
No, go ahead, Keith, and then I'll follow up.
So the way we typically do business, and I mean, this is just from a legal perspective, like we can't share data that we don't own, right? So like if you guys, let's say you guys, with the Department of Police Accountability in San Francisco, they have body camera video themselves. So if you guys have your own body camera video that you are at liberty to do whatever you want with, we can produce reports and use reports with whoever you want. It's your property. We cannot come in, generate reports for your police department, and then take those reports and go share them with everybody. That's just not we would get sued immediately by the city probably. So like we can provide you with the tools to analyze this data, but whoever owns the data at the end of the day, they have the right to do whatever they want with it. So like we can help like from a consultative perspective on how to show what you guys are looking for, but how it's displayed and who it's displayed with is a internal issue.
Right. So that will fall under law, and I think that this is just get to one part, and then the second part of the conversation is getting conversations with the chief to make sure that this is public and get this shared to see how our officers are interacting with the public and how they're doing with the community. With Nikit, he's only can go so far. Like you said, by law, if he was to share the data that he would get, he'd get sued, and that'd be disadvantageous to his company, what he does. But a part of it is again working with the police department to get them to share and talk about this information and share it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I ask a follow-up, like just for more clarification? Can you talk a little about what it is, if there is agreement to have reports be public on certain things? Because I think both sides want greater like trust or accountability, right? What do those reports look like? Visually, what kinds of information can be in them?
Yeah, so that's a good question too. So the raw output of our software is a CSV report. So you have the ability to create pivot tables, filter through the data. You can filter by sentiment. You can filter by events. You can filter by intent. And again, you can customize these so you could find what you wanted to. Like if you wanted to start looking for when profanity was used in an instance, you could filter by that data in the CSV. We recommend, and a lot of the other departments use visualization tools like ClickView or Tableau to do dynamic charting. So like their team will take the CSV, put it in a Tableau, and then they'll share it with the city manager, city council, or the command staff at the department, and then they'll do a whole presentation off this data. But our output's just a CSV, so it can integrate into, and we provide an API. You could push and pull data from directly from our software into whatever tools you're using. So it's super easy to like visualize and create a presentation if needed.
So Randy, did you have anything else to add, or can I lower your hand? Because I'm gonna go ahead and go to Ben.
My head.
Okay. So Ben, and then I think you said that your group wanted to bring forth a couple recommendations after that. So Ben, if
Yeah,
you
I'll
want.
let the group talk about a couple recommendations bringing forward. I don't think if people still have questions and want more information, we can delay the vote until the next meeting. This is not something that needs to be done right away, but it's just to start the conversation and get this in front. And then I can give supplemental information for like one, Helen asking what does reports look like. I have copies of those to show what a report will look like and more information on that and those kind of things. So I'll make sure to share that with everybody on the next go around. So we can come, we don't have to put a vote in the thing. I just put the two options forward and we can come back in 2 weeks.
Linda, you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just want to say, I want to find out, hearing Randy talk, I don't think that the chief has even seen this presentation. Am I wrong?
No, this is for,
because I think part of what Andres is saying, and I hear Helen saying, and I think that we're talking about accountability. I think she needs to buy into this, I would think, because we can't just do this program and say, you will show it to the community. So I think it's something that should be at least presented to her and with our accountability group and get her feedback and then bring it back to the body to say the chief has seen it. She thinks that maybe the trial would be a good thing to do or something like that. And that there's a way that we can work with this, with our subgroup or with the task force group for sharing our community group, how we decide to do it. But I think for us to go ahead, and I understand what you said, Randy, we can bring it back. So I'm not saying that. I think before we bring it back, we should share it, get some feedback to see if this could be something that could work with the community and with the police for accountability. Otherwise, it's just buying a program and saying, and we don't have any access to it.
yeah, that's fine. I also will say that I don't care about the chief's opinion at the end of the day.
Well, not her opinion, but we have to get a buy-in with the police department. You can't just go in and say, you will show this to us. So I'm just saying, we got to find a way to work together. And so I suggest that we at least share it, whether you care about her opinion or not, share it so we can find out, we can do a community group to use for accountability.
Cool.
Thank you. I have to think, though, that the decision would ultimately rest in the laps of the city council. You know, they would listen to what the police chief has to say. They would listen to what the police union has to say, and they'd also listen to the community before making a decision. But I don't believe that this is anybody's decision to be made except the councils themselves, just like everything else.
That's why it's a recommendation.
It's a recommendation.
I didn't.
That's like the recommendation. Free. So
Okay.
we're not telling you that's the recommendation. So we're not telling them, we're saying this is a recommendation and they can choose and debate for back and forth. So it's not me telling them that they should do this. This is, if it comes from the task force, it's always been a recommendation. So I don't know you saying that we're telling RPD and RPOA to do this. We're not. It's a recommendation.
I'm not. I didn't say that at all. I'm sorry. I didn't say it. But I'm sorry. We're not going to get an argument again.
We're not, because you're wrong. But continue.
More bullying. That does not do you any good, Randy. You make yourself look bad with that bullying technique. You're not in middle school anymore.
Thank you, Don. Michelle?
Like that either.
Yes, permission to speak through the facilitator.
Yes, Michelle, I called on you.
Thank you. And there's a reason why I'm saying that. I'm not going to share all the reasons, but I really think that this is part of the issue, is that staff needs to know what the procedure is when we have discussions like this and people want additional information. For example, if you would like the chief to weigh in on that, I think we just need to make that process really clear so that we know you know, what it is that she needs to weigh in on, and if that's something that needs to be set up. You know, we're here to obviously support and work with, you know, staff from CSD for any requests that come in on our side. And so we're happy to do that. But I just think that there just needs to be some clarity when requests are made so that we're all on the same page. And anybody knows me, I'm probably too honest about things. So you let me know how honest you want me to be. But I think that might help us streamline a lot of this information sharing if it's just kind of clear, you know, what you guys would like to be the follow-up if you do want her to review that. So that's all I had to say.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
David.
David.
Yeah, I just got a question on from a process perspective, because the city of Richmond already has contracts. I mean, they have body cameras, right? So what we don't know is what that contract already allows in terms of analyzation of the footage. So again, as a process, before having discussions about a new product, we ought to know what the current product allows. So I'm done.
So can I make a motion?
So Randy, would you, well, before you make the motion, it sounds like that maybe you guys could come to back with like more of a proposal. Is that what you were gonna say? Or go ahead, Randy, go ahead.
So since we got to go through here, I make the motion to request the chief come to our subgroup, our accountability safety subgroup committee to hear about the GreenKey program and have this conversation.
Can I make an additional suggestion that there's enough time allowed? There are 2 efforts underway to look at some more measurement around police at the moment. And so I think she would need time to share what those are.
So maybe just some fact finding, Randy, from the group or you still want her to come to your subgroup meeting?
So she can get the presentation of what GreenKey is and talk about our issues, and we have that conversation. I still want to come to the meeting. I'm not asking for any other. It'd be nice to her to share that she was doing 2 other things that's new to us, but to have that conversation, we can have that conversation. But my motion specifically to have her come to the subgroup meeting to hear the presentation of the GreenKey and to talk about how those needs can be met and which way.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
So the I'm just a little apprehensive, but I'll go ahead because I mean, this is your subgroup meeting. And so your subgroup could decide to do that through staff. And I hate to have like the whole group voting on whether to have, and I know that there's been
There's a motion and a second.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
okay.
that's the motion that was made, and let's take a vote on it. That's how we should be proceeding. I don't know why we keep bouncing back and forth.
Because there was something introduced, but okay. Helen.
Joanne, before you do that, yes. Can you check to see if there are any public comment, please?
Pardon me. Thank you, Bruce.
Can you repeat the motion one more time?
So the motion is to have the police chief come to our subgroup committee meeting to hear a presentation from the key about the GreenKey technology. And that's the accountability and safety subgroup.
Thank you.
Hopefully
we will open this up to public comment.
While we're waiting for public comment, I just wanted to get a clarification. Would it be a different presentation than the one she could watch that was presented tonight on video? Would it be a different presentation, or should we just have her watch what we have from tonight's meeting?
We want her interpretation and her opinion and her feedback. And obviously, if she has 2 other programs on a thing, it'll be behooves to see what is doubly done that doesn't need to be done there.
Yeah, so if she could look at it in advance, she could come prepared to ask questions, and you don't have to go through the presentation again. I just thought maybe you could have the resource there and she could follow up with the questions she might have, just to save you all some time.
I hope she's watching this. I hope she looks at
Well,
it.
I know she's at another meeting.
I have a clarifying point of order, please.
Yes, Don.
Is this motion requesting, inviting her to attend your meeting or directing her to attend your meeting?
Request. Or
request.
go ahead.
Because I didn't hear the word request.
Oh, God damn it.
I appreciate if people can do their best. We are in public meetings, so please refrain from cursing. And we're opening it up for public comment. Did you get your?
Don, when I made the second, it was understanding it was a request. Obviously, we're just task force members. We can't command anyone to do anything. So that was my understanding on the second.
Exactly.
Thank you, Ben. Stephanie.
I'm gonna move forward with public comment. Our first speaker is Sarah Cantor. Sarah, you have 1 minute to speak. You can start now. Sarah, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to second what Andres Soto said about this program really needing public accountability. And as my view as a community member is that this should not move forward unless it can be, all of the data can be posted on Transparent Richmond along with all of the other police accountability data so that it can be reviewed by community at any time, not just by a small group of community members at a particular time. Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't know if the 2 minute time period's over, but that was our only speaker so far.
Yeah, timer's over.
Okay, Randy, do you have another comment on this, or was that from before? Thank you. Linda?
I don't know, can I make my comment now or do I have to wait for the vote? I just want to say, I think that Jim's comment about having the chief look at the presentation and then come to our accountability subgroup after viewing it, then we can spend the time asking questions, getting information. You can even give her a list of questions you might have that you want her to come back with. And then it would save some time instead of sitting there watching it again with her. So I think that was a good suggestion.
Just like you guys said earlier, you guys can make these suggestions to the chief. The motion is to invite her to the meeting. When you send her that invitation, you can say, this is what we're discussing. Here's the presentation, and she can decide if she wants to watch it in advance. But at this point, you're just voting to invite her to the meeting.
So I'm gonna call the roll now on this motion. Burks?
Aye.
Cantu? Is Marisol?
Aye.
Pardon? Oh, I see. Okay, aye. Eddie Chacon?
Yes.
Gosney?
Yes.
Randy Joseph? Killian Lobos?
Yes.
James Lee?
Yes.
Armand Lee?
Yes.
Mingles?
Yes.
Injasang?
Yes.
Small?
Yes.
Soto?
Yes.
Terrio?
Yes.
Tucker?
Sure, yes.
Walker?
Yes.
Whitmore? Linda?
Sorry, yes.
Williams?
Yes.
I have 17 ayes and 3 absences. Before we move on, I would like to just clarify for the remainder of the meeting. I know that there was some comments made earlier about how to make things happen as far as presence of staff at meetings. I would like to say that for the subgroups, it is very possible for someone to contact me and specifically in an email, and I will make sure that whoever you're asking comes to your meeting. Okay.